Okay, this is part two after some technical problems where you saw me lip syncing probably. Theseus here says, go Philostrati. Now, Philostrati is what's called the master of ceremonies, the kind of wedding planner who is in charge of arranging the marriage of Theseus and Hippolyta. So Theseus says, go Philostrati, stir up the Athenian youth to merriment. So get all the young people in Athens ready to celebrate the wedding. Awake the pert and nimble spirit of mirth, turn melancholy forth to funerals. As always, this is metaphorical, so get everybody happy and joyful. That's what mirth means. And turn melancholy forth to funerals. Melancholy means sadness. So Theseus is saying, tell them to save their sadness for funerals. The pale companion is not for our pomp. So melancholy, sadness there is personified as the pale companion, and is not for our pomp means not for our celebration. So sadness is really not relevant for the celebrations of our weddings. And then Philostrati exits. Let's see if we can get the cursor back. There we go. Hippolyta, this is Theseus speaking to Hippolyta. I wooed thee with my sword. So what happened there was Theseus fought with the tribe, the Amazonian tribe that Hippolyta was the queen of, and defeated her. And in doing so, kind of won her hand in marriage. So he's saying, I wooed thee with my sword. So he's acknowledging that he won her not by fair means, by battle, and won thy love doing the injuries. So I managed to get you to fall in love by doing harm to you, by battling you. But what I will wed thee in another key. So I will marry you, romance you in a completely different way, with pomp, with triumph, and with revelling. So this means celebration and happiness. So although I accept that I won your love by doing you harm, I promise from here on in I will treat you well. Then we have Aegeus, Hermia, and Demetrius entering. So remember, Aegeus is the father of Hermia, and he wants Hermia to marry Demetrius, whereas Hermia has fallen in love with Lysander. So Aegeus greets Theseus, happy be Theseus, our renowned duke, and Theseus greets him back. Thanks, good Aegeus, what's the news with thee? So 3 questions I'd like you to answer on this page, so get your pens ready, and whatever you're writing on, or if you're typing. These answers are to be emailed to me, please, in 4 sentences, and there will be another 3 on the next slide. So, dead easy. Question number 1. How long is it until the marriage of Theseus and Hippolyta? If you want to pause and write that down. Number 2. Both Theseus and Hippolyta use the moon as a metaphor. In his metaphor, what does Theseus compare the moon to? And if you want to pause the video and go back to the beginning where I explain that to help you with your answer, if you can't remember. Okay, so pause and write down. And question number 3, please. What is Philostrate's role in this scene here? So Philostrate's role. If you want to pause and write that down. Okay, on we go to the next slide. Right, this whole slide is dedicated to Aegeus's rant at his daughter and Lysander. So he starts off by saying, he's talking to Theseus, remember, full of vexation come I, which means, vexation means annoyance, anger, with complaint against my child, my daughter, Hermia. So I'm here to complain about Hermia. Stand forth, Demetrius, my noble lord, this man hath my consent to marry her. Where's that cursor gone? He's telling Theseus that Demetrius has his permission to marry Hermia. Stand forth, Lysander, and my gracious Duke, this man hath bewitched the bosom of my child. So he's telling Theseus that Lysander has tricked his daughter. Bewitched the bosom of my child, tricked my daughter. Thou, Lysander, thou hast given her rhymes and interchanged love tokens with my child. So he's firmly blaming Lysander for the fact that Hermia has fallen in love with him, saying, thou hast given her rhymes, you have tricked her. He's kind of suggesting he's a bit of a, what would you say, kind of talked around, persuading her. Player, is that too much? I don't know what it means these days. But he's kind of tricked her, he's talked her around, and he's not to be trusted. And interchanged love tokens with my child. So Lysander has cast a magic spell and given her gift. Thou hast by moonlight at her window sung with feigning voices verses of feigning love. So hopefully that's clear. He's turned up at Lysander's turned up at Hermia's window and sung songs to her in the evening with feigning voices, verses of feigning love. Feigning means fake, pretend. So Theseus is saying Lysander's, not only was Lysander's words fake and false, but also his singing was fake and false, and stolen the impressions of her fantasy, so captured her affections. So it's firmly the idea here is that Lysander is the guilty party, and Hermia is kind of innocently fallen for his tricks. And this is how he did it, according to Theseus. A bit of a weird way to get somebody to fall in love with you, but he has given her bracelets of his hair, rings, gauds, so that's kind of like jewelry and stuff like that. Conceits are lies, knacks, trifles, nosegays, sweetmeats, so presents, gifts, flowers, sweets, pastries, toys, things like that. So he has just thrown the whole shebang at her. He's turned up, sung at a window, given her loads of presents. It sounds like he's pretty committed, really, doesn't it? If he is tricking her, then he's put a lot of effort into it. And of strong prevailment in unhardened youth. Unhardened youth means Hermia's innocence. He has taken advantage of Hermia's age and innocence. With cunning that hast thou filched my daughter's heart. Filch means stolen. So again, it's the same idea that Lysander has tricked and taken advantage of Hermia's youth and innocence. Turned her obedience, which is due to me, to stubborn harshness. So Aegeus is saying here that at her age, Hermia should be loyal and obedient to him, but actually Lysander has turned, has turned Hermia against her own father, turned her obedience to stubborn harshness. And, my gracious Duke, be it so she will not here before your grace consent to marry with Demetrius, so she will not marry the man I have chosen, she refuses. I beg the ancient privilege of Athens, so the rules apply to rich, wealthy, powerful people like these. As she is mine, so in this and in Shakespeare's age as well, women really had the kind of the legal status of a possession. They were the possession of a father legally. They certainly didn't have the right to divorce or choose anything really. And once they become married, then they became the possession of their husband. So she is mine, he's saying, she is my possession. I may dispose of her, so I may do with her, I have the right to do with her what I want, which shall be either to this gentleman or to her death, according to our law immediately provided in that case. So in Athens in those days, he's saying there are laws that tell me I am entitled to marry my daughter to whoever I want, which is Demetrius in this case, or I can have her killed if she will not marry the person I want. Which seems a bit harsh, but that is what he is saying. A loving father that he is. Okay, there are 3 questions, so if you get your pens ready or your typing hands, whatever you're going to do, write your answers with. Number 1. Who does Aegeus blame for the situation between Hermia, Demetrius and Lysander? So who is Aegeus definitely blaming? Number 2. How does Aegeus say Lysander got Hermia to fall in love with her? To pause and write down your answer. And number 3. What does the law of Athens say about a father's rights over his daughter? The law of Athens. Okay, that's all for today. If you want to pause the video, write down your answers, and if you could send those 6 answers to me in full sentences, and I look forward to reading them. Bye. Always takes ages to pause.